Buyers were shocked to see that. What are we doing in that situation? Hey everybody, welcome to Sunbelt's webisode series where we talk about deals. We talk about, from a buyer's perspective, from a seller's perspective, what our agents know, what our agents have seen, and we just talk about the hairy things that happen once in a while during a deal. So whether you're a buyer or seller, we really feel like this information, rather than just talking about it internally, we feel like we want to share this with you to give you folks some education on business brokerage in general. If you're thinking about maybe buying a business or maybe selling a business at some point in your life, or maybe you haven't even thought about it, and this webisode series can tell you how it's possible for you. We want to kind of focus on things that don't get talked about in the industry. And the best way to do that is, as I touch base with all of our agents, I support them all here at the office. They often talk to me about troubles in deals. There are things that come up all the time. And those things, of course, help our office grow. We work together and we figure them out. We use our expertise, our knowledge, but also it takes a little bit of creativity sometimes. So those are the types of things that we want to talk about here on these webisodes. They're going to be about 10 or 15 minutes long. And it's just to provide you, the viewer, with some education on things that can happen when you're buying a business or selling a business. So for our first episode, we have our first guest. And I'm joined today by Steve Schaub. Steve is one of our agents who is a previous business owner. And Steve and I were talking about one of his deals this week, and something hairy came up. And so I said, Steve, let's talk about that to an audience so that they can see how we overcome this hurdle, or what elements of a deal can overcome a snag during a deal, which could ultimately kill the deal. Not a fun situation for either buyer or seller. So anyway, enough of me talking, Steve. Why don't you go ahead and get into it? So what happened this week? Tell us about it.
Well, what happened was, at the 11th hour, there was a discrepancy in the inventory, which was a big part of this sale. Turns out the sellers had made a mistake in their accounting, and something didn't get posted, and there was a $50,000 difference.
Do you say $50,000?
$50,000.
Ooh, okay.
And what normally would have been a deal killer eventually is working its way out.
I'd assume the buyers were shocked to see that. What are we doing in that situation to kind of fix that, and why are the buyers still staying on after seeing something like that?
Well, the good news is that in this particular deal, the buyers and the sellers have developed an affinity for each other. They're working great together. It's obvious that the seller wants to see this buyer get this, because it is a special business, been around a long time. And so this surprise it was just an honest mistake, but we're working through it. But it certainly has to deal with how it's handled by us, the broker, and certainly the willingness of the buyer and the seller to work through something like this.
That's a good point, Steve. I remember this deal, and the buyers are so enthusiastic about this particular business. With a lot of our listings, as brokers, as a business brokerage office taking on the onslaught of buyer inquiries, a lot of buyers are just tire kickers, and that's okay. It's an industry where if you're a buyer, you might have an idea at first what you want, but that kind of evolves as you start to see more opportunities you might be interested in. So buyers are out there to look at the best option for them. So sometimes when they come to us, your particular listing's not really what they're after. They just like the numbers they first see. But in this case, I think what you're saying, and it makes sense, is what's saving this deal is that the buyers have what I guess you could consider chemistry. And it's part of the buying and selling process that I don't think is thought about or talked about, is the emotional part of it. Steve, you do a great job, not just of checking the financials, capabilities, and the expertise and background of the buyers, but I think you do a great job of getting that personality fit for your seller clients as well. So would you say that that's kind of true here?
I do, and it's what is going to allow this to go forward.
So besides the fact that the buyer loves the seller, Sure, that might be saving the deal, but what's being done to remedy the situation?
Well, obviously some adjustment in price needs to occur. I think that what all of us can learn from something like this is to try to avoid it happening in the first place. So finding out how businesses come up with a number for their inventory. Is it manually done? Is there some kind of software that tracks it? How often do they do spot checks? So in the future, I realize I need to find out precisely how they count their inventory.
What's a spot check?
Just going back into your warehouse and taking a bin with if the computer says there's 10 items there, and you look in the bin and there's only 5 or there's more, there's 12, obviously you need to correct the inventory. So that would be what's called a spot check.
Oh, so like checking a few inventory items, and if it starts to match up with whatever inventory system you're using, then you probably have a safe bet that your inventory is accurate. But if you start seeing in those particular items that you're checking, it's kind of like the canary in the coal mine telling you should probably take another look at your inventory. So when do you think there's a good time to do that? Like, let's say I'm a seller and I want to sell my inventory heavy business, my retail business. Should I do that before I talk to you? Should I do that during the process where we're getting listed? Should I do that when I get an offer? When's the best time for me to make sure that my inventory is accurate?
The wisest time to do that is prior to listing or during the listing process, but at some point you need to feel comfortable with that inventory number because it will have to be defended at some point.
That's true. Yeah, due diligence regardless. The buyers are going to most likely get in there. So all sophisticated buyers will, and they'll want to know that that inventory is accurate, especially if they're going to pay for it if the listing says that the inventory is included, which I guess in your case is why you need a counteroffer now, because with a $50,000 discrepancy in inventory, I mean, if that's part of the business, then the value of the business has dropped. So now you got to readjust, and that makes sense. So you're getting a counteroffer then from the seller?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, great. So it sounds like the deal is healthy. You got a hiccup, and these are the things, people, they're not deadly if you have the right buyer, but, just more food for thought on things that you can prevent so that in the 11th hour, things go smooth. You don't want any of these things coming up when you're all excited. You've got somebody that's looking to buy your business, or you're looking to buy somebody's business, and these things aren't ironed out. And then all of a sudden, right before you're about to sign the dotted line in escrow, you realize, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. And then all that hard work and due diligence is no joke. It goes out the window. Well, great, Steve. Thanks for sharing that. Do you have anything else, any other pearls of wisdom that you think you pulled out of this that might be valuable to our buyer and seller clients?
Keep your eyes and ears open and do the best you can to prevent these kind of things from happening. And when they do, just hope you have clients like I had on this one, that they're willing to work with each other and make it happen.
Yeah. And Steve, just a reminder to people watching, comes from a background where he's owned motorcycle businesses. So he knows inventory, he knows parts. And, Steve, I'm sure you can attest to having parts in a motorcycle dealership business is probably a major headache with everything you need to keep on hand there, right?
Yeah, there's literally thousands and thousands of gizmos and widgets, and each one has its own unique part number, and you have to be careful you don't transpose because that can pollute a lot of documents.
Well, Steve knows how to handle, I guess, what you would call inventory hangover because he's a champion himself at it. Just more credence to our business brokers. I mean, they've had their own businesses. They've got real life experience. They know what they're talking about. It's not something that they learn on the job. This is part of who they are and the experience they bring. So Steve knows these things very well, so he can help whenever a hairball situation like this arises. Steve's also one of these guys, you can tell, he's very soft-spoken, but gets the job done, but with the kindest bedside manner probably on our team. So if you like Steve, I encourage you to give him a call and work with him. But for today, Steve, thanks for sharing that with our buyers and sellers. Just another hairball tidbit of things that can come up during a deal that I think we both agree it'd be beneficial for buyers and sellers to be aware of. All right. Thanks for joining us, man. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. So that's the end of the first webisode. What'd you think? Did you have more questions? Did we answer a question you might have already had? Was it boring? Was it exciting? Did it make you think? Is it something that's going to stick in your mind? Let us know. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe in order to get notifications of the next episode. We will be doing about 10 to 15-minute episodes covering nitty-gritty subjects about things that people should really know about before buying a business, or at least be aware of things like this that can happen. We'll see you next time.